as you can see, there's a lot of value within the quote to cash process, and just thought I'd give you a stat here from Boston Consulting Group. The most successful smooth out quote to cash tension points, some of the typical impacts include 50% reduction in the time that a sales rep takes spending on the back office tasks, right? And 10% increase in deal margins, and customer satisfaction improves 15 points out of 100. So you can see there's a lot of value from a business perspective in smoothing out a lot of the tension points along the quote to cash process. And that's at a large scale as well. And I just wanted to take some time that we dive into some of our customers that have seen some of these value points. And I want to start with WeTransfer. Now, a lot of people are probably familiar with WeTransfer. Just in case you aren't, they're a 100 million plus revenue internet file transfer company, SaaS-based applications. They had acquired SaaS-based applications along the way as they were growing, very typical of a SaaS-based company, right? They're acquiring ad hoc applications for single purpose use. And they did this for about 2 years plus, then realized that they needed to integrate them. They decided to build out internal integration tool between just two applications, and it just didn't work. And that's a lot of times we get that, right? Where organizations went, hey, we could do this ourselves. And they quickly find that it's much more complicated and much more of a heavy lift than they initially imagined. And the financial team with that integration was really struggling to manage all of the disparate data points that we showed in that initial pictorial slide, where it's all of the different applications residing in different areas across the organization. So they're having to spend a lot of manual hours moving the data on a month-to-month basis. And WeTransfer really looked across the market and did their due diligence as any organization should. And they selected Celigo over, some of the core competitors like Boomi and MuleSoft because of our very powerful functionality, intuitive design. We have a library of pre-built integrations, as Chris talked about earlier, and being able to kind of have out-of-the-box integrations was really powerful for them. And they focused a lot on quote to cash. So that was their kind of their first step in that area. So the Salesforce and NetSuite was a huge success for them, and they are now moving across different departments within the organization. But from a quote to cash perspective, the revenue accountant can now work on the tasks within the finance department, right? They're not focused on all of those manual processes that they were before. That is, a real drag on the organization. So I'm just going to move on to the next one now. So we have the CDC. So unfortunately, a lot of us are familiar with the CDC, the Center for Disease and Control, over the pandemic. And they had chosen Celigo, again, looking through a lot of the iPaaS vendors for all of the systems in their foundation. And they built a highly customized integration between Salesforce and NetSuite. And then they were hit with the pandemic. And then Celigo moved and played more of a critical role across their entire organization because of the pandemic, because they needed a lot of integrated data across the organization in order to make more informed decisions. So right across Concur to NetSuite for expense management, ADP to NetSuite for HR processes, and much, much more. And they're starting to build out slowly and surely, building out more and more areas in the business where they're integrating and automating by using Celigo's platform. And then lastly, we've got Swapcard. And Swapcard's an AI-powered all-in-one event matchmaking platform. So it's all in-person events, virtual and hybrid events. And they're a SaaS-based company growing at a significant clip. and they adopt, again, going back to this the time old adage of like they're adopting applications in a very myopic single purpose focus, and they had got QuickBooks, Zoho, and Salesforce, but they had a real lack of visibility in their cash position, right? So they were dealing with a lot of manual errors. Accountants were spending 95% of their time on manual tasks that weren't really related to their job role, right? That wasn't really related to the analysis and reporting of what an accountant should actually be doing. And so in combination with a system integrator in Wave, they work with Celigo, together to automate across their entire enterprise. So the first step was integrating the Salesforce CRM, the billing modules with NetSuite and ERP, and now they have, systems that speak to each other, right? And it's a basic thing, but it's a fundamental thing, right? So having data that's accurate, having sales and finance looking at the same information at the same time and not having that data lag is really fundamental for Swapcard for their financial position. So with that, I'm going to pause here and see if we've got any questions. So I'm just going to go and check the chat. Okay, so the first question, let me see. So the first question coming through is, and Chris, this was probably more for you. Does the integration work with Salesforce CPQ?
Yeah, absolutely. So great question. We and I touched on it really lightly. Now with CPQ, a lot of the complexities within CPQ tend to live and breathe in something like Salesforce. And so what's nice from an integration perspective is Celigo only comes in at the moment where CPQ has already done its magic. So if in the case of like Salesforce CPQ or SteelPrick, if you remember that. So if you have, let's take an example here, an opportunity where you've got multiple quotes, let's say 5 quotes attached to it. You have a lot of different quoting scenarios. You're trying to figure out that right size fit for that particular deal. And then you finally land on the one that you want to mark as the primary. You go ahead and you do that in Salesforce. Now, what it's going to end up doing is updating the overall parent opportunity and its corresponding opportunity products. And so it inherits all of that information from that quote. And then what Celigo does is come in and says, hey, now that that opportunity has been tied to that primary quote, we only pull out that opportunity. So yes, we absolutely do work with Salesforce CPQ. That is definitely something a lot of our customers are utilizing. And if you have more questions about it, we can always circle back through a call, or feel free to reach out through email.
Yeah, that'd be great. And as I said, if anybody does have follow-ups to that, please feel free to reach out. Let me see. The second one was, do you support any other ERPs? Because we've talked a lot about NetSuite, right? Mm-hmm. So yeah, this is a fairly very valid question. Do you support any other ERPs beside NetSuite?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, at the end of the day, so we're an integration platform. So if you're running Acumatica, you're running Microsoft's, whatever ERP, as long as with us here at Celigo, as long as you have some way for us to interact with that data through, typically with these softwares, it's through APIs. We're going to be able to leverage our connectors in order to talk back and forth. And like I said, with Salesforce, we have a lot of pre-built templates. So for something like Acumatica, for something like Dynamics, Microsoft Dynamics, those are other ERPs that we definitely work with. Got it.
Thanks. So I know we're close to time, but I want to have one last question here because I think it's a really important question. And it says, we have multiple Salesforce accounts, which a lot of people do, obviously. And can you handle the integration from multiple Salesforce accounts into one NetSuite instance?
Yes, that is actually a scenario we've come across more than a few times. There's, especially when you get into the world where you've got, multiple subsidiary management, which is really, I think, something that NetSuite handles very well. In the case of Salesforce, yeah, we absolutely can. And that's usually done just with tagging certain records and transactions and customers and items and things like that with custom fields. But absolutely, our pre-built integration can handle, if you have 2 or something like that, Salesforces that need to feed into one ERP, we can definitely work through that.
Great. Well, I think that's all we have time for. I'd like to thank you, Chris, for your time today. I really appreciate it. Very, very valuable getting those great insights. I'd like to thank the audience for their time. We hope that you join us in this webinar journey. We have 4 other webinars coming up that cover the rest of the finance automation process and how Celigo helps within that. It's quote to cash is just only one of those areas. So we look forward to inviting you to the rest of the finance webinar series. And so look forward to talking to you then, and have a great rest of your day.